How to deal with debt collectors. That's going to be our subject of today's video. And this is a very important video because I see people continuously get it wrong when they're dealing with debt collectors. It's like they're dealing with a debt collector in like the sequence is out of order. If you deal with debt collectors the right way, depending on where you're at in the process, you can make debt collectors go away. Now, I'm not just talking about if you have a debt like easy ones where maybe it was a statute of limitations or something that they couldn't prove. I'm talking about if a debt collector buys your debt and then they're coming after you for the debt, depending on what you've done on communication, depending on what you've disregarded by not either answering calls or throwing away letters in the mail from debt collectors, is going to depend on where you're at in the process. So for the purposes of this video instruction, I'm going to talk about it from start to finish, to even if they potentially try to sue you in court, which is something that can happen. It is happening to hundreds of thousands of people, and it is actually accelerating right now. LVNV funding, Portfolio Recovery, Jefferson Capital, Calvary, all of these companies have actually increased the amount of debt collection lawsuits that they have filed, when a whole bunch of it could have been stopped at the beginning. If you disregard a letter from a debt collector, you are opening the door to so much being able to happen to you, not just having information placed on your credit, but them potentially taking you to court. And they're taking people to court for small amounts, as little as $1,000. The reasons why they're doing it is because if they take you to court, you don't represent yourself the right way. Who's going to pay for an attorney to go to fight a debt that's $1,200 or $1,000? Nobody. And they know this. It's like that's their middle game on all of those. So if you don't even know how to respond to them, you're going to have a debt plus penalties and fees and court costs stacked on top of that, and then they're going to come garnishing your wages when all of this could have been stopped at the beginning. So let's start at the beginning. When you're dealing with a debt collector, they are required, when they buy your debt, they are required to send you a letter notifying you that they purchased the debt, and they give you the opportunity to dispute any, which could be a portion of the debt, an amount, or all of the debt, all of it. What most people do, they get this wrong, but it's part of what you should do, is that they immediately go into looking at, I don't owe you the money, Mr. Debt Collector. I have no obligation to pay you, which in a sense is right, but you got to give more details about why. Part of it is you stating you don't owe them money, but the other part of dealing with a debt collector is that you want them to have to prove the claim. And so first, let's look at the first thing we're going to do. You get that letter from a debt collector. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look to see if the statute of limitations has ran out for that debt. You need to look at the charge-off date. A lot of people get this confused. Hear me out on this. When you look at your credit reports, the charge-off date from the original creditor, not when the debt collector placed the information on your credit reports. And also, it's not when you initially started the account with the original creditor. Some people think that the statute of limitations starts there. Statute of limitations starts when the debt is charged off. So from that date of that charge-off date is when the clock starts to tick. And if the original creditor or a debt collector who purchased your debt does not contact you and does not do anything before that date, and that date passes, then they cannot legally make you pay that debt. You can morally pay the debt, but they cannot legally make you pay the debt. They cannot take you to court or do any type of legal action. And if the debt is past the legal statute of limitations, all you have to do is notify the debt collector or even the original creditor that the debt is past the legal statute of limitations to collect according to the laws in your state. Now, it's different from state to state. It is not the same, and that's where a lot of the confusion comes in, is that people will see that, okay, that statute of limitations, well, one of the things that people get confused on is they'll think the statute of limitations is the statute of limitations of the 7 years to remain on credit reports. And that is something that is totally different than the statute of limitations for debt collections. So you need to look at the statute of limitations for your particular state so you will be able to know if that debt is past the legal statute of limitations. And the first place to check is on your credit reports to see when the charge-off date is. And on the free report programs that are out there, you will not see that information. So you need to know when the charge-off date was. The next thing is, if it's not past the legal statute of limitations, there is something that a lot of debt collectors do not expect you to do. They do not expect you to challenge the exact documentation of what they're trying to say, of the debt that they've purchased. They will mainly focus on the statements saying you owe this amount and we purchased it from them, and that's how we have a contract with you. But yeah, there's a gray area in between there, is that they don't want you to know that there's certain documents that they have to show to prove that they purchased the debt. The problem is that they don't like revealing those documents because there could be issues within those documents. One of the issues within those documents is that they potentially have a debt that they wasn't even supposed to have. We've seen this from time to time where credit card companies would sell debt to a portfolio company, and the portfolio company sold the debt to another debt collector. So we already have a problem with the debt collector who is coming after the individual that purchased the debt from the portfolio company, is that we've always talked about third-party debt collectors. This is a fourth-party debt collector. Fourth party. Because they're dependent on the documentation, not from the original creditor, they're dependent on the documents from the portfolio company. And what we've seen in some of those contracts from the original creditor to the portfolio company is they had stated that they are not allowed to sell that debt to anyone else, no other debt collector. That if they are not going to collect on the debt, that they want them to give that debt back to them. And they'll get, I don't know if they give them the money back. Is it some refund policy or something? But we've seen this. And the reasons why the credit card companies don't want to be involved in that is because if that portfolio company who they were there and they signed the contract with that debt collection company, which is a portfolio company also, that we are there, we shake hands, we sign, whatever they do. And then if they go and give it to another debt collection company to collect, even if they assign it to them, they're like, hey, we don't know what they're going to do. We wasn't in the room with them and you. So we don't want to be responsible for that type of activity. Now, some of the credit card companies don't care. They just sell it, give it to them. But that's your door. That's opening the door for you if you have an issue with a debt collector. But hear me out, is that you have to know where you're at in the process. So if you're early in the process, your statute of limitations check, and then you're doing if it's not past legal statute of limitations to collect, then what you're doing is you're sending the debt collection company what I would call, and I'm going to give you this letter, a cease collection activities letter. All this does is it wakes them up to make them know that you're not going to be the ordinary individual that they're going to go after to collect debt from. It's going to make them think twice. And if you can make them think twice about coming after you, you're already 50% ahead of everybody else on making them stop what they're going to do coming after you. Remember, they've only paid pennies on the dollar for the debt. And what they're doing is they're running their little algorithms to say, okay, we have this, we bought this many old debts, and we're going to go after this, invest $25 in going after each one of these. So that could be a $25,000 investment. And when I say that, that means that they're going to do the searches. They're going to utilize their applications with tracing, skip tracing you to find out where you're at. All this type of stuff. It can cost some money. And then postage and printing and all of that. It can cost some money and labor to put everything together. And then the calls, to have their reps call. So it costs them money to do this. Debt collectors do have expenses to come after people for debt. But debt collectors also make a determination on who they should go after by the way that they respond. And if you don't respond to a debt collection letter, you are opening the door to allow a debt collector to place that information on your credit report. So for all of the videos that are out there that are saying don't respond to a debt collector, go look at your credit reports and see what you're not responding have done. That is why you end up in this next category that I'm going to move to, is that you did not respond. And now it's on your credit report. And the debt collection company is saying, well, we followed the process by sending you a letter in the mail. And because you didn't respond the way that the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act is written, is that you said yes. So by you thinking you're saying no, you're actually saying yes and allowing them to place that information on your credit reports. So now when you're looking at what you're doing with them, is that takes you out of the category of cease and desist here. You have to deal with the amount that they're claiming, because they're putting an amount that you owe on your credit reports. They don't just put their name on there. They don't just say LVMV funding and zero balance, but it's a collection. No, they put a dollar amount. So now we got to get into making them prove that dollar amount, not just a debt validation. So what you do when you are trying to make them understand that it's not just going to be where you send me some statements, hey, I'm disputing this debt, I'm asking for a debt validation, and you just send me a few documents. No, we're not letting that go past on there. We want you to give us everything. That's where we go into making them give us that contract. We want to see that portfolio exchange contract. We want to make sure that you conformed with all of the rules according to my state and also federal guidelines. You will see on those contracts, they may have the guidelines for a whole nother state, and they try to map that over to you where you're at in your state, and that's a no-go because they broke and violated the rules. Every state has their own laws. So you want to get that documentation, and then when it comes to the dollar amount, not just a few statements, you want the debt collector to let you know how they came up with that amount. So now here comes the big problem. Even if it's the portfolio company, the debt collector who bought it from the original creditor, they're going to have a problem because the original creditor is not going to give them their accounting records and say, okay, this is how John Doe got to that balance amount. They're not going to give them that information because that is internal information. They're not going to give that over. So all they're going to do is they're going to give some statements. Okay, we want you to verify those statements. The next thing is if it's sent to a fourth party collector, the debt collector cannot go and call the original creditor. They didn't even buy it from the original creditor. So that makes a problem. So remember what I said earlier. You want to get that debt collector thinking twice about coming after you. And when you do this, you're 50% further than any other person on making that debt collector stop coming after you, and don't feel guilty because they bought that debt for pennies on the dollar. So understand when I'm telling you this. So what you want to do is you want to get you want to have them prove the full contract, not just a few statements. You want everything. You want to know how they came up with that amount. You want to get the contract that you have between them, which is really going to be the contract that they have from when they purchased the debt from the original creditor. If they purchased the debt from a portfolio company and the debt collection company that is coming after you, they purchased it from a debt collector / portfolio company, then you want to see that contract, because you might find that they were not even supposed to sell that debt to another debt collector. And then you want to make sure that all of that stuff is correct. You want to even see, and I've seen this before, where a portfolio company purchased a debt, and then there was another debt collection company in between, and then another debt collection company in between, and then the debt collection company that's coming after you was like the sixth debt collection company that would actually hold the debt. Each one of those debt collection companies are required to follow the rules in the transfer of documents, in the transfer of information about how they came up with the debt amount, because they're passing it to someone else. So they're required to have that information accurately shown or provable. Not just not just show an amount, they have to prove that claimed amount. So you want to make them establish, and I got my notes here, establish the balances, the payments, the interest rates, disclosures for the amount that they're claiming that you owe. You want to have the signatures, from them with whoever they purchased the debt from. You want to make sure that all is correct, and then you want to have them prove some sort of contract with your signature stating that you're even doing business with them. Now, they're going to try to map that over from the purchase of the debt, but that doesn't matter. You want to just put, to make them think twice about coming after you. Now, the third way of dealing with a debt collector, depending on where you're at. So we had a first situation where they just sent you the letter, you responded to them. We had a second situation where you didn't respond. It's on your credit reports, and I just told you what you need to do to deal with that. Now we had a third situation, which is a combination of step number 2, if you've done your homework. But if you haven't done your homework, this is the way that you would build an affirmative defense. Everything that I just told you to do in step 2 is exactly what you would need to make them prove in your when you do your response to a court summons. Where I see a lot of people get confused, and where I said it, the people are like mixed up at where they're at, is that they're asking for certain things at the wrong time, and that allows a debt collection company not to have to respond. So you have to know where you're at. So if you're being sued by a debt collector, you're still going to do a debt validation. You're still going to want to have all of the contracts and make sure that they conform to all of the rules in your state, and even the rules on where they purchase the debt. You want to add the contracts. You want to make them prove the balances. You want to make them prove the amount. You want to have your signatures. You want to have privacy statements, all of that stuff. You want to make them prove everything that would be required if you were doing business with that debt collector, which would be as if you were doing the business with the original creditor. The original creditor had to follow rules, and they don't just make those rules just to make them. That is the rules of giving loans and banking. And when a debt collection company buys that debt, in essence, they're assuming the position of the original creditor. So that means that anything that you ask them for, they have to be able to provide that to you, or they cannot really validate and prove their claim, which is, when it all comes down to it, the bottom line is the amount that they're claiming that you owe. So what I want you to do is, I don't want you to worry about trying to figure out how to get all of that stuff together. I'm going to give you the letters to get you started. It will help you if you're with step 1 and 2 of dealing with a debt collector. The first letter is a statute of limitations letter. If the debt is past the legal statute of limitations, you do not need to do a debt validation. You don't need to prove contract anything, because there's no legal option for them to be able to collect it. You just need to notify them. If you don't notify them, they're going to just continue coming after you. So I'm going to give you that letter, and then also I'm going to give you a cease and desist collection activities letter and a debt validation letter, so you can deal with them if you're in steps 1 and 2. If you're in steps 3, where they're suing you, I have a link below this video where you can send us your court summons, and we could, do a free review of it, and we can let you know how we can help you with the response with that, because you have to do that a certain way or you're going to, automatically lose. Also, I want to make you aware that at the bottom, I've just added a new link to this program that I have here. It is a book, The Credit Secrets. It's going to teach you everything about the credit system, and it's also going to show you how to make the credit system work for you. Our credit is with us for a lifetime. So wouldn't it be beneficial if you can learn to understand how to make the system work for you? I see so many people making the wrong decisions about credit, wondering why their scores are low, wondering why they're going through certain things with their credit. And I just put some, the answers in here, the real credit secrets, so you can know. And I always talk about page 7, where I was detailing how scores are figured, and that you could be doing everything right and just one little bitty thing wrong. Like one little thing where you just need to make a small tweak and your scores could just jump up into the high 7s or the 800s. And that's what I did. My scores are 834 across the board. And there was like one little bitty thing that I was doing wrong. And once I fixed that, it was like just jump. And I was like, wasn't even aware of it. And it has nothing to do with paying your stuff on time. You have to pay your stuff on time, but there's little bitty things it's like the game within the game that you need to understand. And that's what I talk about with this. And I also give you some free bonuses. One of them is how to get a low interest loan, because you don't want to get a loan and have to pay high payments on it. That's just going to make it to where you get a loan the wrong way. How to get an automobile loan at a low interest rate, how to get a credit card at a low interest rate, how to get a mortgage at a low interest rate, and what you could do to boost your scores. I made it like a little flashcard, so you could just, look on the back and say, okay, if I just follow what Steve said, that's going to be able to work in my favor. Now, with this, you can also get this for free. You can get all of this for free if you give us a 30-day shot at helping you repair your credit, because this is going to show you how the system works, how to make the system work for you. But you may have issues with your credit, and what I want to do is I want to allow us to work on your credit while you can study to understand how the system works. So when your credit is cleaned up, all of a sudden all of it comes together for you, and you'll be well on your way. So if you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. If you want to take advantage of this offer, the link is below this video. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website your3scores.com to grab your TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian credit reports in all 3 scores. And again, if you need the link for my 3 free letters, statute of limitations, debt validation, and cease and desist collection activities letter, and the instructions are right there with the letter, so you'll know exactly which one to use pertaining to your situation. The link is below this video. Thank you for your time. This is Stephen A. Williams, President and Founder of thecreditrepairshop.com.